Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin and welcome back for another video. Today we are doing a super minimal bullet journal setup in what I like to call my everyday bullet journal. This is the journal that I use for things like my monthly setups, my daily checklists, that kind of stuff. And for the start of 2022, my new bullet journal is going to be the Secret Vine design from Archer & Olive. This one is a gorgeous teal A5 journal, and I'm very excited to be getting into it. As per usual, any of the equipment I use in today's setup is linked in the description box below, but without further ado, let's open up to the first page of the new journal. For the sake of filming, because this side of the notebook doesn't have anything supporting it, I usually put something underneath just so that then it's kind of level with the other side, and today I am going to use my eraser to do that. There we go. Now, starting with the nameplate, I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually super nervous to write in this journal because I haven't done a theme this minimal before, but I figured that was worth sharing with you guys because yes, even those of us who have been doing bullet journaling for years still get nervous putting pen on the first page. One of the things that I like to do to kind of calm my nerves or make it so I'm less likely to make mistakes though, is to pencil everything in first, including my name. Not that I was gonna forget how to spell my name or anything, but the pencil just makes me feel more assured that I won't stuff something up. For pretty much all of the writing in today's setup, I'm going to be using this Muji pen in the 0.38 size. It has a nice ballpoint tip, which means it's actually going to stand up nicely to my heavy-handedness. Alrighty, we can do this. Obviously this footage is sped up, but in terms of the actual timing for writing in my name, this took just a little shy of 1 minute. I went fairly slowly with the lettering just to make sure that I got letter forms that I actually wanted. See, I literally almost forgot the accent on my A because I didn't pencil it in. One thing I will note about the Muji pens is that they are quite inky, so you do have to make sure that you wait a sufficient amount of time for the ink to dry before going in and erasing any of that pencil. We don't want to smudge any of the ink work we just did. Minimal nameplate page finished though, so we're flipping over and we're on to what I'm calling a moments page. The idea behind this page is that it's going to contain the big and little moments that occur during the life of this journal. So you might be able to see from my penciling, I've sketched in for January, February, March and April. I'm going to pen in the header though, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what my intention is for the rest of the page. Because I'm trying to keep the setup of these start of journal pages super minimal, I've effectively decided that I'm really only going to be using 3 pieces of equipment. One is the Muji pen that we've already talked about, another is a light grey Tombow in the colour N89, and to add a little bit of visual interest we're also going to be using the gold acrylograph in the 0.7mm tip. This one's mainly going to be used for adding highlights, and a highlight that I want to add here is by putting a line along the top, just to kind of extend the header out across the page. I guess you could say another piece of equipment I'm going to be using is a ruler, just because I want that line to be super straight to kind of lend itself better to the minimal look. While I could rule my line from this direction, I do actually prefer to turn my notebook because I like to rule lines vertically rather than horizontally. Something I'm also going to do is flip my ruler upside down while I rule, just because the acrylograph is pretty inky and I don't want ink seeping underneath the ruler. The ruler sits really flush to the page this way, whereas if I have it upside down, it has a little bit of a gap, which means it's less likely to have that issue. Now to put in the headers for each of the months, what I'm going to do first is put down a line with the light grey Tombow for each of them, and then write over the top of that with my black pen. Following the idea of having nice straight lines though, I'm actually going to set myself up some washi tape borders first. What the washi tape does is just protect the page from the ink, and it means I get nice crisp edges on my blocks of colour. So I'm just lining that washi tape up along with the dot grid, and making sure it stays stuck down, buddy. When you're doing something like this, make sure that you don't use a washi tape that's too sticky either, because you don't want to rip your paper pulling up the washi tape once you've put your colour down. Just going to erase the little labels we have in there, because I do not need them. They were just placeholders. And then we just carefully pull the washi tape up. In terms of the actual timing for this layout, from first touch of the pen to final erasings, it took just shy of 5 minutes. Of course, that's only the time that I was actually working on the layout, not the time where I was giving explanations. But as the video title suggests, we're aiming for a super simple setup. So as you can see, we have 4 sections, one for each of the 4 months, and underneath those headers I can just list out anything that happens in the month that's worth noting down. So big moments, small moments, things that might be related to me or related to the world in general, that kind of stuff. So it effectively ends up being like a memories page. That one's finished though, and then we are flipping over and onto the future log. You can see, again, I've gone in with pencil first and written out the headers or titles for each of the months of the year. And then in the space beside each of those is where I'm going to list down the things that occur in those months. All we really need to do here is pen in the headers and then add in those gold highlights. General recommendation, do turn your book to be in an orientation that makes it easier for you to write in. Also make sure that in writing out your headers, if you're using an inky pen, make sure to write them out in a way where you're not going to like wipe your hand over fresh ink. So for instance for me, I'm going to turn my journal like this, start by writing September, then May, then January. The reason that I penciled in what probably just looks like basic script lettering before doing the filming of this setup is because this isn't really reflective of my regular style of lettering. So I wanted to make sure that my letter forms looked the way I wanted them before I came in with the pen. Although admittedly I did struggle with some of the letters and how they're shaped or how they join to the next character, I do really like how they turned out. Lettering done, time to add in the gold highlights. In terms of the actual timing for this layout, the future log took about 7 minutes, but as usual this doesn't include sketching in time. While we wait for the gold and probably still the black ink to dry, what I might do is just go and add in some of the events that I know I have coming up in the next year, just so you can kind of see how this spread is going to look as I fill it in. Because I know that my regular writing pen is the Inkjoy, that's what I'm going to be using to fill in all of my events. Question of the day for you guys, I'd be curious to know, do you use a future log in your journal? From what I see in the community, it does seem that the use of the future log is quite varied. So I'd be interested to know if you use one. There was a period where I found that the future log didn't really serve me in any way, and although my use of it still does fluctuate, I do like to have one in my everyday journal. So just a few of the dates that we have coming up for 2022, one of them I already put in incorrectly because I was reading the 2021 date rather than the 2022 date. Helpful. Flipping over though, and we are on to my level 10 life page and my quarterly goal plans page. Starting with the headers though. On the level 10 life page, what I'm now going to do is list out all of the different kind of categories that I have in my life, and then in the space next to it I'm going to have a space to rank them out of 10. So 0 being the worst and 10 being the best. As you can see, the categories that I've gone for my level 10 life are physical and mental health, personal development, home environment, finances, work, partner, social, and family. And a piece of equipment that I've just decided I want to use is the Staedtler Tri-Plus Fineliner in this pale grey colour. For this layout in our minimal themed bullet journal setup, the time taken was approximately 5 minutes. This time was certainly increased by doing all the little dots that I'm putting in here. Raising all the lines, raising all the lines. And putting in that gold line. Excellent. So hopefully you can kind of see how the level 10 life page is going to work. So each of the little dots here is just a space for me to kind of colour in. So let's say that for physical health I rate myself a 5 out of 10. I can colour in 5 of those little dots, just make them a little bit thicker, maybe with a gold pen. And then I've got a little space underneath here to write some kind of journaling about why I decided to give it that rating. For the quarterly goal plan page though, we're going to have 5 sections, so one at the top for my overall target for the quarter in terms of the 2 goals that I have for 2022, and then underneath this we have a space for each of the months where I can kind of outline what my intentions for those months are in order to reach my target for the quarter. We're going to go back in with the washi tape and a Tombow though to add in some blocks of colour with nice crisp edges. Is it necessary? No, but I like it, so it's fine. Oh no! My washi tape ran out! Alas. But this is why I keep a box of reserve washi tapes literally just for this masking trick. These are washi tapes that I might have gotten in a set, but I don't really like them as much as other ones in the set, so rather than throwing them out, I save them for this. Make sure to erase the pencil because we don't want to have to try and erase it after we put down the tombow. And then just in with the tombow. I do try to work fairly quickly with this because if you don't, you end up seeing the kind of overlapping lines where you put the tombow down once and then put it down again. And then, like we said before, carefully pulling up the washi tape. Though I will say this is the most satisfying part of doing things this way. Revealing the nice crisp edges. And then just using that Inkjoy pen again to write in the titles. The time taken for this layout was about 7 minutes, and that time was certainly increased by using the washi tape masking for the tombow sections. If you went and just freehanded in those tombow lines, this time would certainly be reduced. Now, as I said before, I have 2 goals for 2022, so what I'm going to do is divide this page into 2 separate halves for each of our different sections. And there we have it, so we have the level 10 life page and the quarterly goal plan. I decided to put these 2 together because, honestly, my goals are very much tied to my level 10 life, in particular some of the categories that are rated lower than others. Flipping over though, and we are on to my meal planner page. Now, this is a new addition for me. I did technically have a meal planner in my first bullet journal, but that was just for dinners. This one I'm expanding to breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. As per the last pages though, going in first, putting in our headers, including the gold line. So in general, what this page is going to have is a kind of grid section over here with a row for each day of the week and a column for each of the meals. A space over here to list out our favourite meals, kind of as a go-to reference for when we're doing our meal planning, and then a space at the bottom here to hold a sticky note, which is going to be used to record things for my shopping list. This idea I got from Erica over on Craftinated, who also did a meal planner layout in her 2022 setup. For the favourite meals, I'm just going to add in a gold dot point for each of those, so I have my bulleted list ready to go to list out those favourite meals. And for the sticky note section at the bottom here, I'm just going to put in some corners to denote where that sticky note is going to sit. And now it's time to go in with the grid for the meal planner section. I'm not too sure if I want to use a black pen or a grey pen here. I might start with a grey pen, see how it looks, and then if I feel like I need a black pen over it, I'll put it over it. This one I am not going to freehand though, I'm going to use my ruler to make sure those lines are nice and straight. In terms of timing though, from first touch of the pen to final erasings, the meal planner spread took about 8.5 minutes. Of course, this doesn't include explanation time or sketching in time. I think I made a good decision with the light grey. I think it's not too heavy and it still kind of looks minimal, which is nice. What we do need to add in though is the initial for each day of the week, and I think I'm going to do that in gold just to kind of tie in with the gold dot points on the right hand side. There we go, so we have a space for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. I don't really feel the need to put a header in because it doesn't really matter which column I use for what, as long as each column is one meal type. Favourite meals section, place for my shopping list sticky note, and over the page we have a check this out, someday maybe, and my next journal space. These ones aren't going to have much other than just the header because they are really just space to put down notes, so going and putting in those titles. As can probably be expected with just having titles, this was the fastest spread to set up in this setup, coming in at 3.5 minutes. While we wait for that to dry, we are going to go and put in our gold lines, but I figured this was a good moment to mention that if you don't wait long enough, like I did on a previous spread, what you can use is a white gel pen just to fix up any of the smudging that you might get from the black pen. It's always good to have some ways to fix mistakes in your journal up your sleeve. Or lack of sleeves. Yes. Gold lines in and then waiting an excessive amount of time for the black ink to dry. Probably the most simple spread of this setup, but over the page we are onto my theme planning pages. So again, you can see we have a section for each of the months, and what they're going to have is a space to record my colour palette in some little 1cm boxes, and then also places to write down things like the general aesthetic or what kind of decorative elements am I going to use, any of the pages that I want to include in the setup, and also what kind of lettering style I want to use for the headers. But first, as per every other page, let's put in some headings. By the point of getting to this layout, I was a lot more comfortable with the lettering style that I'd chosen to use. It's kind of funny how practice does that. So just a reminder that with repeated practice, you do improve. I started drawing the gold lines in and then realized that that wasn't actually what I wanted to do, because normally along this top line is where I'd actually list out my theme. It's a bit hard to list a theme when there's a gold line in the way. But that's okay, it just meant that I needed to adjust what I was doing underneath each of these headers. Because the Muji pen is totally the kind of pen that if you go over it with a water-based marker, like a Tombow, it will smudge. To draw out all of the boxes for my colour palettes, I'm instead going to use this extra small size Faber-Castell Artist pen, which doesn't really have the same issue, because it is a waterproof pen. To save a little bit of time, I decided to freehand the boxes for the colour palette, but this spread still was the most time consuming for this setup, coming in at about 13 minutes from first touch of the pen to final erasings. In previous journals for my theme planning pages, what I'll often do is instead of setting up all of the colour palette boxes at the start of the journal, I'll set them up month after month. For this one though, I decided to do my future self a favour and have them already set up for when they need them. I'm sure future me will be very appreciative. So now as we have a space to write out the theme for each of the months and colour in the colour palette, underneath those I'm now going to put in a space to list out the spreads that I want to include, the type of decorations I want, and a space to write out the lettering style. As you may have noticed, the style of today's video was a bit different to what we normally do, so a bit more chatty and I guess you could say kind of instructional. Do let me know in the comments though what you think about it. Do you prefer to do more real-time talking, or should we stick with the voiceover? Is the side angle footage helpful, or should we keep it top down? I do always appreciate your feedback. And you might be able to see we had a little bit of smudging here, so white gel pen to fix that up. So there we have my theme planning pages, and then over onto the next page, this is where I'm going to start my teaching related pages. But we're not going to set those up here because I'm not going to have them in the same kind of theme or style. Back to the front though, and flipping through what we did set up today. So we have the nameplate page with my name, the moments page for the big and small moments that happen between January and April, the simple future log which has the names of the months, the level 10 life page where for each of the different categories of my life I can rate them out of 10 and then do some journaling about why I gave them that rating, the quarterly goal plan for each of my 2 goals, which has a space to put in my target for the goal for this quarter, and then a space to plan out what I'm going to do in each of these months. The meal planner and favourite meals page, so meal planner to plan breakfast, lunch, dinner and snacks, with a placeholder down the bottom here for my sticky note for my shopping list. Thanks again to Erica from Craftinated. We have the check this out, someday maybe, and my next journal sections. Nice and simple, really just the headers. And then we have my theme planning page, which has space for writing out the theme, the colour palette, the decorative elements, the font style, and the spreads. A lot more minimal than my usual setups, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed this one. If you did, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you recreate any of these spreads and put them on social media, make sure to tag me so that I can check them out. I do love seeing your recreations and commenting on them and sharing them. If you hadn't already and felt so inclined, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more on planning, productivity, and personal development. And until next time, team, bye!